Has President Biden actually canceled more than $9 billion in student loans? And when do payments restart for those with federal loans? Hey everyone, I'm Adiante Till with Verify, and this week we're tackling the topic of student debt. Yeah, you probably have it, or know someone with it, or you're actively trying to avoid it like the plague. I feel that deeply. So let me get through these answers quickly so we can go window shop on realtor.com for houses we can't afford because we're broke. So let's get started. In order to understand loan repayments, we need to break down the difference between the two, federal loans and private loans. Federal loans are funded by the federal government. Makes sense. But alternatively, non-government lenders like banks fund private loans. There's a lot of variation in the terms and rates for private loans, whereas federal loans have conditions set by law that are harder to change. So for the sake of clarity on this one, we're going to focus specifically on federal loans for this episode. And that brings us to some headlines you might have seen recently. After issuing a pandemic pause on loan payments, interest, and things like collection on defaulted loans, the government announced a restart date. I know, don't shoot the messenger. Beginning on January 31st, 2022, payments and interest will resume. So y'all, mark that one in your calendar. Now, you may remember earlier this year how some progressive lawmakers called for the president to cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt for every borrower. Now, that hasn't happened yet, but in August, headlines started popping up again about some student debt relief. This one reads, Biden has canceled $9.5 billion in student loan debt, yet forgiveness for all isn't necessarily coming. And this viral tweet asked, for who? So let's verify. Has the Biden administration canceled more than $9 billion in student loan debt? Our sources are the Department of Education and the Federal Reserve of New York. We can verify this claim as true. In March and August, two separate moves from the Department of Education discharged a combined $7.1 billion in student debt for about 450,000 people with disabilities. Later in August, the Department of Education discharged $1.1 billion in student debt for 115,000 former students at ITT Technical Institute. It was based on problems leading up to the school's closure. Now, those students were eligible for a refund under the pre-existing Borrower Defense Program. That gives victims of misconduct relief from federal student loans. Those two refunds, plus other qualifying discharges by the Department of Education, brought the total in canceled loans to $9.5 billion for 563,000 people since January. According to the Federal Reserve of New York, the most recent calculation of outstanding student loan debt in the U.S. is $1.5 trillion. With a T, my friends, T. For a little context on that, it comes out to about 0.61% of all student loan debt nationwide. Yeah, that's less than 1%, for those who don't know decimals. Some Democrats are still pushing for Biden to eliminate $50K of debt per borrower. Now, Biden's voiced support for debt forgiveness in the past, but on a smaller scale. On the campaign trail, he proposed eliminating a minimum of $10K in loans per person. But there are some discrepancies on who exactly has the power to initiate loan forgiveness and how much might be possible. Some members of Congress say it's Biden's responsibility. Here's Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren speaking at a September event.
Canceling up to $50,000 in student loan debt is one of the most effective executive actions President Biden can take all on his own to kickstart an economic recovery and advance racial justice.
But back in March, Press Secretary Jen Psaki said it was actually Congress that could move to cancel $10K in debt per borrower.
The president continues to call on Congress to cancel $10,000 in debt for student loan borrowers. That's something Congress could take an action on, and he'd be happy to sign.
Now, going back to February 4th, Psaki tweeted that the administration was also, quote, reviewing whether there were any steps he could take through executive action. For now, though, Biden has yet to propose any specific executive action. Now, if you have questions about your own federal student loans, you can find information and resources at studentaid.gov. That's all for this week, guys. Thanks for watching Verify. I'm Adiante Till. Hit us up on social media at Verify This. Have a good one.